And we are in Exodus 11 to 15 now. It's starting to get crazy in these Old Testament stories. And again, if you're just joining us for the first time, we as a church community are reading at least 5 chapters a week together through the Bible. And so this is helping to create really cool conversations and it's really spiritual formation within our micro churches and within other discipleship groups that are meeting throughout the week as we're discussing these things and growing together. And this conversation is just highlighting a few situations or instances within those 5 chapters that we can talk about, provide some clarity, some theological context to help you as you are reading through God's Word. How's your week been?
It has been, well, it was hot last week, so it's a little bit cooler this week, so not too bad. Can't believe June's almost finished, and we'll be into the week of the 4th, and everything's just going so fast. And anyway, that's a roundabout way of saying I'm fair to middling. So
Fair to middling.
Yeah.
How about that? Well, fair to middling. The people in Exodus 11:15 are not fair to middling.
No.
We are finishing up the plagues, and so there's some crazy stuff going on in these chapters. And so the first huge incident that we come across in chapter 11 and 12 is the death of the firstborn throughout Egypt. So what's going on here, Tim?
So you have the 9 plagues that preceded this right here, and it seems like, at first the magicians were able to duplicate, and then all of a sudden, the fleas come in. They're like, this is the finger of God. We're tapping
Can't keep
out.
up, tapping out.
And then, you'll see in the darkness and the hail like that, it's only Egypt that's affected. God has protected Israel. So Pharaoh sees it. Still, Pharaoh's hardening his heart. I think he sees that as an opportunity. Why would I give this up? This slave labor that I have, this control that I have. Because I am a God, basically, even though God has been, just systematically showing, no, I am the one true God, and all these plagues are on yours right here, which leads up to this final plague, which is the final one, and it's going to not affect Israel, but in this situation, in the past where Israel didn't have to do anything, they still had light, the darkness, there is a requirement that God is asking of them, which leads us into the whole Passover there.
Yeah, so talk about that a little bit. What's crazy is that Moses and Aaron give Pharaoh a heads up.
Yes.
And he still just does not listen. I hear what you're saying, but nope. So real quick, kind of just unpack what God's planning on doing with the angel and at night, and what the expectations are for.
So what it is like you said, it's taking that unblemished lamb, and then you keep it for, this is leading into the Passover, keep it for, I think, 7 days or 4 days, whatever that.
A few days.
A few days like that. And then it's a very specific, it's unblemished. And then you don't want, don't eat leaven or anything like that, because, New Testament leaven, represents the sin and that. So he doesn't want that. So he's very specific. And the sacrifice, and with the blood, because it's the blood that ultimately is going to cleanse us. And you put it over the doorpost, so when the angel of death comes, and I see the blood, I will pass over you. Oh, you good Baptists will know that song. I will pass over you.
That's why nobody knows it.
My wife does, so she'll get it. There may be a couple others.
Whatever.
But that's what it is. But like I said, it's the other ones, they have to do anything. God is like, okay, this is a sacrifice, that you're making, because it is a requirement for this. It's that's the requirement that it takes, because I'm holy, and
you need to do something.
You need to do something. Yes.
Show me, and so it's interesting, because that couple of days of, it's almost like an incubation period.
Yep.
Notice how I snuck that word into there. Something about a missional. No, anyway.
We're going to be the incubators.
Yes. But that they hold the lamb, they pick their unblemished lamb, they hold it, and then they're eating a certain diet. And so it's almost like a prep period waiting for this to happen. And then they're supposed to sacrifice it. They're supposed to eat it all. Don't leave anything. And then take the blood and put it over the doorpost. And then at night they do all this on a designated day. And then that night, when the angel that you talked about passes over, when he sees the lamb, the blood on the doorpost, he knows these are the people.
Yep.
And so he passes over, and any doorpost that does not have the blood of the lamb, foreshadowing there, on the doorpost, then the firstborn of that family dies, and that's not just a humanity thing. That's
livestock,
biological living thing.
Yes.
Deal. And so
and he sets it up to where, and he talks to where it's going to be a remembrance. So this is not just a one time and we're done. On this date, every year,
he's establishing a covenant.
Establish this covenant, and this is to remember that covenant and the practice that you do there, which I believe probably some still observe to this day. That order.
Well, here's the hard part. Like the reality is, this is one of those things in Scripture that can stir a lot of doubt, a lot of confusion, a lot of questions. For I thought God was a good God. Like what? The babies didn't have anything to do with this. Like what's going on here? And so that's what brings up the historical context here is we've already talked about it. Like time after time, Pharaoh was warned.
Yes.
He was warned before the plague came. The plague came. He wanted to be done with it. Moses and Aaron went to intervene on his behalf again. Still hardened his heart. Comes back. Oh, we're going another round, Pharaoh. If you don't do something, whatever, give it to me. And so he is continuing to be stubborn and hard-hearted against sign after sign after sign, warning after warning after warning from God, and he just does not listen. And so, when we think about it, you'd already talked about Pharaoh believed he was a god.
Yep.
The Egyptians believed their Pharaoh was a god on top of all the other gods that they served. And so this was a major, God was our God, our one true God was tired of dealing with he's done playing. He was ready for a final statement. And so, people struggle with, and it's hard to read, right? Like, why such a severe thing? And, we talked about this a little off camera that we get frustrated with God when we can't understand God's ways versus our perspective. Why do, that proverbial question, why do good things happen to good or bad things happen to good people? But there's a false presumption in that, right?
We're not good.
We're not good people.
No.
And so I don't care how old you are.
Yep.
I don't care who you are. We equate good to God with morality, and that's just not how it works. And the other question that we talked about is at some point in our life, we come face to face with either do I decide to trust God or do I decide to trust me and being my own God?
Yeah.
And when we can't control a situation, it's so easy to be frustrated with God and feel like I can be God or I can be a better God than God, which really sounds a lot like Genesis 3.
Genesis 3, yeah.
In the garden. And Pharaoh, yes. To your point.
Did God really say that? Yes.
Did God really say?
Yes.
And so we just really need to be careful. I think it's okay to wrestle. God's people throughout the scriptures wrestled with why. Why have you left me here all alone? All these kinds of things. As long as that wrestling leads you back to
Well, you have the open
Jesus.
heart about that, and you're talking to God, and you're seeking answers from Him. Instead of, like you said, sort of closing yourself off. Like I said, we're going to have those questions no matter what. It's the nature in us, because like I said, we don't understand. But we go all to that, and then God, like you said, is He's not an unloving God. He's full of mercy. And the sacrifice He asks is not, He made the ultimate sacrifice. And He's not doing anything that He hasn't asked us to do.
So easy to forget that in a moment, isn't it?
Because this is a foreshadowing with the spotless, blemish, no blemish lamb, who came down, His Son, who was spotless and sinless, as the ultimate lamb sacrifice.
Gave His own Son.
For
a wretch like me.
Yes, because like I said, no one's good. We're wretches. So.
And that's what we need to remember. It's hard to in the moment, but we got to remember, like, we don't want ultimate justice.
No.
Because we all deserve hell.
We want
separation from God.
We may want justice for other people. We want God to judge them. but we don't want that judgment on us.
Yep.
So.
Yep. And so we just need to remember that it's a terrible situation. God can be merciful and just simultaneously. We just may not see it as both, right? It's like Jesus came full of grace and truth. It's hard for us to see the balance of the two because we're constantly drifting from one to the other, one extreme to the other. And so we knew this one would take a while because that is something that we deal with in real life all the time, is when, terrible things are happening to loved ones, why, and we get frustrated. It's a reality, but hopefully that frustration leads us back into the arms of Jesus, who says to come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden. All right, second issue is, and we just want to talk about this pretty briefly, is the Passover lamb on the doorpost, because we had talked about it already. It's a foreshadowing of what's to come.
Yeah.
And so what's going on here?
Sacrifice of the lamb. I think I've jumped ahead on this, so I probably the Lord passes over those home. Yes, already gave him that, and the blood serves as a sign of trust. That Israel must act in faith.
Yep.
Sign of alignment. They are meeting the requirement of God's covenant, because God has a requirement to remember that. And the lamb dies and the firstborn lives. So it's that sacrifice.
Wait a minute. Say that again.
The lamb dies and the firstborn lives.
Boom. The lamb dies, the firstborn lives.
Jesus died that I might live.
Yep. And so this scene in Exodus is setting up really, I don't know if it's a fair statement to say the rest of the Bible, but it is a huge hint or shadow into God's cosmic redemptive plan to save his people.
It's like the early gospel right there, the good news.
Yep.
Because that is good news.
It is good news. And so think about this. Like, if we're talking about this is good news, we're being saved from slavery.
Yes.
Okay, so we're almost to the mountaintop, almost out of slavery. Good news. Good times, right? Mm-hmm. All right. Deliverance is coming through the substitution of the unblemished lamb. We wanted to bring up the word propitiation. It's a fun word. I don't know that I've seen it anywhere other than the Bible.
Yep.
A couple times in the New Testament, but Jesus came as that substitute. All right, so we're at mountaintop, right?
We are on the mountaintop.
We're being saved, man. God is rescuing us. But then, third situation, we'll talk about this briefly. Why does God lead Israel toward the Red Sea? Because there's a couple different options that he could take them. If you zoom out on Google Maps, as the people are leaving Egypt,
and Goshen, where they are.
And Goshen, in the land where they were kind of migrating, God is heading them straight into a dead end.
Yes. He's not taking them the easy route up to the promised land with milk and honey, which is, up along the Mediterranean coast there into, the Philistine area. He's sort of taking them a roundabout way, and which would seem to them and seem to other people that he's just sort of, man, what's he doing? He's lost. His GPS tracker's not, the TomTom's not working very well. Needs an update.
I hadn't heard that in a while either.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they're thinking. Why don't we update instead of using that old text?
Why this way?
So he puts it right there at the Red Sea with the Egyptians coming behind, and nowhere to go.
We're on the mountaintop, Tim.
Okay.
We're getting rescued. Like he's saving us miraculously, leading us out. Where are we going, Moses? What? I mean, how quick?
Well, and even during that time when it seems hopeless, you have the fire that he's leading by. It goes behind them.
Yeah, let's not forget that.
And gets between Israel and the Egyptians, so they cannot. There's that passage in there that they cannot get together while they're being able to go across. Okay. So he's protecting them.
Pause a second.
Yes.
We didn't even bring up. So Moses and Aaron are leading these, hundreds of thousands of people. How many were there?
600,000 men of.
That's true. Yeah.
Age,
so we're looking at a million plus.
Million and a half. Yeah.
Leading a million plus. All right. So the way God does this is in the daytime. It's a pillar of cloud and smoke and whatever.
Yep.
Like this moving tornado. God is guiding them across the wilderness, and then can't hardly see. Wait a minute, what? Turns to fire. Now there's a pillar of fire. Like
Can't comprehend that.
evident, like he's obviously in this, right? Leading us out of slavery, being saved. We get to the sea. Oh, dead end. Oh, wait a minute. Look, God's behind us now. Oh, the Egyptians can't get us. He's protecting us.
Yes.
But man, what'd you do? Bring us here to die? Maybe it's better that we just go back to being slaves. Like,
because it's easy. It was easier for us in that slavery than being right here thinking we're going to die and there's a dead end right here. And we are slaves to that slavery, right? No matter what that is.
Stockholm syndrome,
Slave to sin.
We are a slave to sin. Well, we like comfort.
We like comfort.
And anytime there's a test, man, we start to get itchy. And we're like, hey, what's going on here? You know, and the moment we feel like we're losing control,
yep.
We're like, God, why'd you bring us out into this? Why are you doing this?
And you might want to ask, well, they were enslaved in Egypt. They were treated harshly. Yeah, but at least they knew, I guess, food and everything. Here they're at a sea. They've been wandering all these different places.
Crazy.
You know, the mountaintop, but they're starting to,
Bunch of idiots, man.
Yes, we are.
Then I go look in the mirror and I'm like, oh,
yes, we are.
I'm an idiot. And so, again, the key insight here for this situation is that sometimes God leads us into seemingly impossible situations to remind us that He alone is our hope.
He doesn't need our help.
He does not need our help. All I need to do is submit to Him, right?
Yes.
And so, once again, He extends grace and He parts the Red Sea, right? This incredibly difficult thing to like process. We've seen all the story, kids' storybooks and, what's that look like? And so basically, the Egyptians are starting to chase them. Pharaoh changes his mind again. They start to chase them. God's still protecting them.
They lets them go across on dry land.
Until the sea opens up to where a million plus people can cross on dry ground. Which like just weird. Like it's not even muddy.
You're not going to take 5 minutes to do that. It's going to take a while to get.
It's going to take a bit. Yep. It's going to take a bit. Then you got people in the passing lane just being slow. Oh, did I bring that up just now?
Yes. Are we confessing something there, Dave? Yeah.
That's just reality.
That is reality.
Truth only hurts if it's true.
Yes, okay.
But He parts the Red Sea, crazy, again, provision, gives them a way out when there was no way out. Mm-hmm. Another kind of foreshadowing of things. And so, regardless of how you want to view, was it supernatural? Was there like a windstorm? Was it, at some point we need to say, are we asking the right questions?
Yeah.
Because there are things that we're going to have questions about that really are irrelevant to what God's trying to get across.
Yeah. Are you focused on that one there to try to? Very good. Are you trying to focus in on that and missing the broader thing?
Yeah.
The bigger.
Can't see the forest for the trees, right?
Exactly.
And so the reality is this is a theological event. God is providing what they can't provide.
Yeah.
And so that is time after time after time. And so again, Israel, the nation of Israel, they're doing virtually zero for their rescue. All they're having to do is take steps of obedience to follow God's provision. And so again, a lot of times God is working in us, and then the story comes after He's worked in us.
Yes. And
so we just have to keep taking steps of obedience. And so anyway, I know we've spent a lot of time on those, and it was intentional. So we'll bring up one more, the bitter water at Mara.
Yep.
We'll skip Moses' song, which that's kind of cool. Actually, let me go back. One of our situations was this Song of Moses, which is in Exodus 15. And I don't want to elaborate on it too much just because of time. But the biggest point there that I do want to bring up is that as we understand who God is and what He's done for us, the proper response is what?
Is worship.
It's worship.
It's worship.
It is.
Whether it's song, whether it's just raising it, whether it's worshipful prayer, on your hands and knees crying, being thankful. Worship is not just one thing. Worship is your heart.
Yep.
And what is your heart right there? And how does that flow out? And obviously with Moses, it flowed out with this song.
Yep.
And people have that and whatever. It's not one thing particular, but it's the worship and it's the heart. So.
Well, and that's the thing. And I think guitar strings and chords and harmony and of course drums, those things add to the musical side of worship, but they can also stir emotions without stirring the spirit.
Yeah.
And so this understanding of worship that Moses had in Exodus 15 was this profound understanding of what God had done, which compelled him to worship God. And so it's that, like we said, posture of our heart and mind. And so when we gather, whether it's like in our alone time in the car driving, or with our family, or with our microchurch community, or whoever, worship can be really an alignment of our heart and mind. And you don't need extra tools for that.
No, you
because
don't.
As we understand who Jesus is for us, man, it should compel us to a place of worship. I went on to that longer than
That's
I
okay.
wanted to,
I think that was a good point there.
Number 7 was the bitter water at Mark, because once again, all right, God has rescued them. He's led them through a tornado and a pillar of fire. He's parted the ocean, basically, rescued them. 3 days later, on the other side, so the Egyptian army is destroyed through the water. It's a whole other conversation. A mere 3 days later, the people are complaining again. They go from celebration and worship to complaint.
So, about the water being bitter.
About the water being bitter.
I mean, think about what they...
I'm a water snob, but come on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind town water, but no, Jenny's got me on the Berkey. Seriously, what did they just witness over this whole time? The plagues. What did they literally just witness 3 days earlier and sing about? And they're complaining because they after you see all that, you don't think God is not going to provide for you in that wilderness with some sweet, sweet, smart water? I mean, you really don't. And that's crazy. And then we like to criticize them, but then how often do we do that? We see God work in our lives, but we tend to forget that. And that's going to be a reoccurring theme in this book.
Yes, it will.
And just like it's a reoccurring theme in our lives.
Every day, man.
Every day. So, and it's easy to sit back and say, man, you guys are so dumb. Yes, we are so dumb. I mean, that's how you have to look at it. Because because you look, and that's why he's the great shepherd, because we are dumb sheep.
And we need a shepherd.
Yes, we do.
And it's so easy to forget that. Like and so it's one thing to like cry out to God during extraordinary times. Like, when we're in deep need or something's going on, that's a knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah.
Go to God almost. Whether it's to blame or to cry out to, we go to God. I would even say, like, in moments of bliss, like the true mountaintop experience, it's easier to like, hey, man, thank you, Lord, with a legitimate, sincere heart. But it's in the ordinary,
the mundane,
the day-to-day grind. Like, we just forget. It's like Egypt. It's like the Israelites in Egypt, like that day-to-day grind. They were in the midst of slavery, but oftentimes thought that sounded better to them in the day-to-day than to be in God's hand. And so we got to remember this, like the challenge for us, because a lot of us live, like, we all have needs. There's things going on in our lives that I'm not trying to minimize, but the day-to-day is when we forget to rely on God's provision. And so, we got to remember the day-to-day, that God often tests and forms us after victories and not just during the storms.
Yes, absolutely.
And so that's some tough stuff. And so with that being said, typically what we do here is we get to our rule of life and we give you a question for each of our rule of life sayings, which is the bold living, right? So be with and bless others, observe and obey the Holy Spirit, love and live like Jesus, and declare and demonstrate the kingdom of God. Yeah. And then as we were talking about this, like, a lot of times this rule of life is how we live out loving and living like Jesus. So it's this external thing. And so rather than give one question for each of those, what we're going to try to do is go back to the outcomes of the incubator of loving and living like Jesus. So those outcomes are surrender to Jesus, living sent on mission, and living committed to one another. And so starting today, we're gonna provide a couple reflection questions for each of those for you to be thinking about, chewing on, talking about within your MCs this weekend, and really try to pray over practically living these things out. because we reflect on these reflection questions and the outcomes, and then through that we live out our bold way of life, right?
Yep.
And so, all that to say, when it comes to living surrender to Jesus, Tim, what's a couple of questions here we got for folks?
Where am I struggling with God's justice in my life right now? And am I ready and willing to confess and surrender my confusion, anger, or discomfort with God to Him in prayer this week?
So don't gloss over these questions, because
No.
that's one reason we went this direction, is because they're going to sometimes feel like arrows, darkness. And so there are areas in your life more than likely that you're struggling to really understand and appreciate God's justice. So where is that, and are you ready and willing to confess?
And that's
it?
okay that you do. I mean, we all do.
Absolutely.
But where are you willing to, like I said, to confess that and seek out?
Not just confess it,
yes,
but surrender it.
Surrender it.
And begin to trust in Him.
Yeah.
And quit trusting in yourself, because you ain't the answer.
No.
And I'm not the answer. Second question.
Is there a situation in my life right now that God may be using to deepen my dependence in Him? And what is one faithful step I can take in begin trusting Him with the outcome?
So what is a faithful step to actually begin trusting in Him? Not to just say I need to trust in Him more, but to begin like taking baby steps to trust Him. We'll post these things on the app so that you can access them later as well. But when it comes to living sent on mission, we got a couple questions here as well.
What part of my story can I share with someone this week to be a source of encouragement to them?
So, if you are surrendered to Jesus, you have a story of being brought from death to life. You may not need to share the whole thing, but are there aspects of your story that you can share with someone at work, maybe in the family, the household, the neighborhood, to be a source of encouragement to them while they're down?
Am I asking for God for those opportunities?
Yeah,
we'll give
seek
those
them.
To you. Seek them. Yeah.
Seek them.
What is God calling me to do that I've been putting off, honestly, due to a lack of trust in Him?
There we go. There's an arrow sticking me right in my chest. So, and if you haven't felt the Lord leading you to something, again, it's a prayer thing. Give me eyes to see, give me ears to hear. God, where am I to go? What am I to do? To where and with whom am I going? But then for some of us, we know that God has been prompting us. Like if we've been praying, we've been in the Word. If you haven't been, you're not going to feel anything.
Yeah.
More than likely. If you have been resting in Him, then you may feel like the Lord is calling you to something. So when we ask the question, you're like, oh, you may know, but you haven't been stepping into that because you don't trust Him fully, or you're scared, or you don't know what the outcome's going to be. So the question is, how can you take steps into that this week? So again, pointed questions. So they're not meant to be easy Sunday school answers. Pray over them and then take steps. All right. The third outcome of living committed to one another. A couple questions here.
Do I help cultivate worship and gratitude in community? What is one way I can bring gratitude, worship, and celebration wherever I am?
So what do you bring when you're with other people? Do you bring negativity? Do you bring positivity? Mm-hmm. Are you always glass half full? Because really, it's about being real, but pointing people to Jesus. We're always in discipleship mode, right? We're either pointing them to Jesus or we're pointing them away from Jesus. So am I cultivating a sense of worship and gratitude, or a sense of, not? And so the other side of this question is another question.
Yeah, wow, this one hurts. How do I respond when others are fearful or complaining? When someone around me is fearful or frustrated, how can I respond with patience, truth, and hope instead of joining the negativity?
So, can you turn the tide of a conversation when there's gossip going on? Do you jump into that?
Or do you sort of walk away without addressing?
Or are you just passive because you don't want to be confrontational? Or walk away.
Which is being passive in that, yeah.
And being passive in another way. Or even in that moment. Because, that's hard for people to do. Like, are you praying for in that moment, Lord, help me turn this around. Help me help me stop this, help me intervene somehow.
Yeah.
And maybe it's as simple as like a good friend of mine used to always say, like, he'd be in a conversation with a bunch of guys at, wherever, and they're, talking about their wives and they're criticized, and they get to him like, Mike, what's going on with your marriage? And he's like, I mean, honestly, I kind of love my wife. And so that's just a subtle but clear way of like pumping the brakes on the negativity within the conversation, right?
Yep.
And so don't just jump in.
Yeah, you don't have to give a sermon and just start scolding them like that, but it's just how do you turn that? Or like you said, do you just sort of feed into that negativity and join right in because it feels good?
Yep. Point people to Jesus, point them to hope.
Yep.
Make a difference. Be bringing shalom into the world around us, stepping into those liminal contexts as our outcomes, talk about. So anyway, I hope this helps you guys as you reflect on this. How can I live this out as a bold way of living? I hope this has been a beneficial conversation to you guys as you read Exodus 11 to 15, and it's to provide some pretty cool conversations and maybe confession this coming weekend as you gather with your micro churches. I hope you have a great rest of the week. Blessings.